Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Caitlin Vargas, and I'd like to welcome you all to our regular board meeting for February 17th, 2020. And I'm calling this regular board meeting to order. It is now 5:30 p.m. Thank you to everyone who can make it tonight. I'd like to first do roll call. So I will call your name and please say here or present, whatever you would like. So I'm going to start with Josh Scove.
Here.
Thanks, Josh. Emily Secord. I don't see Emily, but if she joins, I will definitely alert everyone of that. Don Norden.
Here.
And Carl Ye.
Here.
Thanks, Carl. Stephen Yet.
Present.
Thanks so much, Stephen. And then, of course, I, Caitlin Vargas, am also here. So I'd like to just start this meeting with our first agenda item, comments from board president, and I just have a few quick things to say. I do want to make note that next month we will be welcoming 2 new board members. If everyone was able to see the new appointments, we have both Susan Cox, who's going to be joining us from Carl's subdistrict, and then we have Michelle Weber also joining us. And I believe Michelle's been watching a few of these meetings, including the one we were just on, and we're so thrilled to have both these new board members. So with that, Carl, I just want to reiterate how much we have appreciated your years of service and your most recent presidency. You've seen the board through some very exciting projects and have been a really great leader. So thank you. And I just wanted to see if you had anything you wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Caitlin. And I just want to say how much I appreciate you as VP for part of the time I was president. And thanks for just a little bit of time to express some appreciation to the people that I've served with. I have done this for 8 years now. And really quick note, actually, I think Michelle is actually from Weber's from my sub-district who will be taking my place.
I'm sorry, you're right.
So sorry. Correct the record. No, you're fine. But part of that appreciation goes out to all of the LTD employees who make transit work in the Eugene-Springfield area. And we cover so much area. It's not just Eugene-Springfield, it's Junction City, Cottage Grove, it's all around the county, and we cover so many departments as well. From the we have operators, we have facilities, operations, customer service, public safety, planning, budget, business services. I've left out some people, but we've all as board members interacted with all of these departments in some way, and it just shows you the diversity and the breadth of all the things that need to go into a transit agency to make it work. And to the LTD employees, I just want to say I am so grateful, but also just so impressed because of how you make everything work all the time, every day, and now during a pandemic too. And you make it look easy enough that there doesn't seem to be problems, even when there definitely are problems that come up from time to time, of course. So it's pretty amazing. I also want to thank AJ for her leadership and for building great relationships with people in the community. And I want to thank the board itself, of course, and for all of your volunteer service. And I've really appreciated being able to be with you and part of this with you. I do have a direct message for board members really quickly. I just want to say, I think one of the things I really like about our board is that we really do, I mean, when I look around to people, when we used to be together, I could tell, we were very attentive. And I think board members really do listen to the community when they come to address us. And I think we all recognize they make sacrifices to be able to take the time to come and actually come and talk with us. But I also want to tell my board members, please don't forget that there are people who aren't able to come to our board meetings, or they don't feel like they're, not that we're not welcoming, but they just don't feel like they understand or want or are really part of our process. And I want to make sure, and I know board members know this, but I think it's worth saying, it's like, I think we know they're not being lazy, they're not disengaged people. They're taking care of families, and maybe they have other things going on, and for the other reasons I've mentioned. And so, but I think it's our duty and our responsibility to always be thinking about the people who aren't coming to our meetings and what they need from transit, because I think it's our job to represent them in all of our discussions and all of our decision making, because we definitely do hear from people, which is great, but there are people we don't hear from that we also need to take into consideration. So I hope you have the courage to keep considering those voiceless demographics that we have, and to achieve the best transit system that includes all of them as well. And with that, I just want to say thank you again. Thank you to everyone. It has been a great 8 years. I always thought I would be in a group setting with everyone to say the goodbye, because that's how I always saw people leave LTD. But fear not, I will, or fear a lot, I will still be around, and I will try to be involved as much as possible. So good luck to everyone. Good luck to the new board members. And I look forward to the good work you do.
Round of applause for Carl. Thank you so much, Carl. Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And glad to hear that you will still be haunting us in some sort, because your years of expertise and wisdom we could really always use. So thank you, Carl. I know AJ is going to talk a little bit more. I just wanted to remind all board members that we are now live streaming and recording our meetings now. And so please, if you can, we would always appreciate cameras being turned on. I understand there's always going to be circumstances that don't allow that. But if you can, that would be great. So thank you. And then for not just board members, but everyone listening, something really exciting. I don't know who gets the Springfield Chamber of Commerce emails, but LTD was nominated for Pillar of the Community for the Springfield Awards. I'm just gonna read really quick what that sounds like. So the Springfield Chamber of Commerce does their annual awards and installations, and it's a great event. I've gone for years. This is their 71st annual event, and it's gonna be next Thursday, February 25th from 5 to 6:30. So everyone open up your Outlook calendars or find a pen. Next Thursday, the 25th from 5 to 6:30. So like I said, LTD is nominated for Pillar of the Community alongside Bicoastal Media, Kendall Auto Group, Oregon Community Credit Union, and Peace Health Sacred Heart Medical Center at Riverbend. So a really quick blurb so you can understand what Pillar of the Community means. This is from the Springfield Chamber's website. A deserving recipient of the Pillar of the Community Award is an organization that has made a long-standing impact on the community. It is a company or agency that has had significant impacts on employment, innovation, stability, and contributes to the community beyond their core business. So really excited to be part of that great group. And then another awesome thing that happened for the awards is our very own Aurora Jackson was nominated for Business Person of the Year. So it's really exciting to be recognized in 2 different categories. Huge round of applause for AJ. That is so exciting. Some of the other nominees were David Elgarico from Mackenzie Willamette Medical Center, Mark Molina from Molina Leadership Solutions, Tab Davis from Bicoastal, Robert Killen from Lane Small Business Development Center. So just really great. We're super excited to see who wins. So tune in for that. And good job, LTD. Awesome job. All the employees, all the staff. Huge round of applause again for AJ. What an awesome honor. So hope that you all can attend. So with that, I will stop blabbing and turn it over to AJ for her comments from the general manager.
Thanks, Caitlin. Let me begin by thanking Carl. Carl, thank you for your years serving LTD as a board member, through your leadership as board president and your continued support for good public transportation in our community. You've continued to be an advocate for that throughout your time, and really wanting people who are not at the table represented to be heard. So thank you for that leadership. And yes, I think you'll continue to haunt us. So this is not goodbye. This is just thanking you as your last official meeting in your capacity as board member. But I do want to make an announcement that we did open our Santa Clara station. You can see Josh Scove has it in his background. So definitely nice to celebrate this monumental achievement for such a beautifully designed station that will represent the community. For board members or community members who are listening in. If you haven't gone by, there are areas in which the station definitely has monuments that represent the community. So I ask that you take some time, go visit it, and hopefully it's an opportunity that when things get better, you can take a ride on one of our LTD buses. So encourage good public transportation for the Santa Clara community. Definitely, Caitlin's already mentioned it, that we're live broadcasting. But in addition to that, I want to say that these meetings will be available online so that the public does not have to request them or register. They can access them. If this time that we meet is not convenient for them, it's an opportunity for them to go back and really hear topics that are interest to them. I want to thank Camille for your strong project management in getting this project done. I know your focus has been transparency and both getting this accessible to the project, but also in records management. So thank you so much. Providing these tools for the community is very important, especially as we still continue in a virtual world. So that's really key to our organization, and our board has prioritized that. And then I want to also announce, lastly, a lot of announcements, apologies, that as part of reinstating fares, that we will continue for the month of March, the rewards program that allows anybody who is riding LTD buses to get onto the program for the month of March free of charge if they use a Touch Pass card. And this is an attempt to get the majority of our riders, whether they're using an app or the TAP card, to be able to be registered. As we know, getting good data ridership that's comprehensive, but also anonymous, will help us deploy our future service. So we hope to bring you information about the data that we could collect, but we are first definitely extending the rewards program to be able to really incentivize our riders to do so. So that concludes my announcements for today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, AJ. And I just wanted to note Emily Secord has joined the meeting. Okay, great. So let's move on to announcements and additions to the agenda. I'm just going to ask board members, please only add agenda items that are urgent and requires the board's immediate attention. So does anyone have anything at this time? Carl.
Thanks, Galen. Actually, I have a comment I want to make to thank AJ for making the announcement about the extension of the Touch Pass rewards program into March. I think it's a great way for us to continue to make that push to get people to use the Touch Pass, but also I think it's a really good way to give people a price break during a pandemic for necessary trips. And I'm hoping that with Touch Pass, it also has the added benefit of acting as a deterrent for people just to use the bus for non-essential trips or without significant purpose, and to also hopefully just reduce public safety incidents. So I think I fully support it. I love it. And thank you very much that we're doing this.
Thanks for that comment, Carl. I see thumbs up from folks all around. That's great. Just as a reminder to everyone, we have paused the Employee of the Month for now. So just as a reminder, we don't have Employee of the Month for March. So let's move on to audience participation. Camille, would you please read the statement for the audience participation and please assist with anyone who is wishing to address the board?
Absolutely. And it looks like we do have one person indicating they would like to provide public testimony. Let me go through the instructions really quickly. To indicate that you would like to provide testimony, please use the raise your hand button. For those of you attending via phone only, press *9 on your phone to raise your hand. When it is your time to speak, your name will be called. For those attending via phone only, the last 4 digits of your phone number will be called. Please state your name, city of residence, and who you are representing for the audio record. Once you have provided testimony, your hand will be lowered. Please do not raise your hand again, as only one opportunity to speak is provided. For those unable or not wanting to speak publicly, testimony may be provided via email at clerk@ltd.org. Also, public testimony is limited to 3 minutes per community member, and a timer will be displayed on the screen and will beep when the 3 minutes is up. Okay, so first up, we have 2 people indicating they would like to speak now. Let me get the timer up really quickly here, and I will call on Bill Bradley first. Bill, go right ahead when you're ready.
Hello, am I coming in clear?
Yes, sound great.
Okay. Bill Bradley, Springfield, Oregon, representing Amalgamated Transit using 757. Thanks for taking my comment, President Vargas, members of the board, General Manager Jackson, and staff and public. I'm here to advocate for the passage of the one-year contract extension that ATU and LTD reached a few weeks ago. Our members voted on this deal last week, and they gave it a resounding approval. That gave me a great deal of confidence that my team and I are advocating for their priorities, and this is something that they certainly want to see done, so we can all continue to focus on what we need to do, which is rebuild this transit district, rebuild our ridership, focus on the community, and hopefully come out of COVID, stronger than we came into it. A lot of work has gone in this partnership between Wayne Transit District and ATU over the last 12 months that really gives me hope as we look into the future of what we can achieve together. So this one-year deal will allow us to continue to use that relationship to improve upon our services and use that as a platform to continue this effort that we have embarked upon. So with that, I just want to say I hope you guys do pass the agreement. It's a fair deal that will continue to recognize the work of these essential frontline workers, the work they do every day, have done it since the beginning of COVID, and will continue to do it after COVID, workmanlike fashion. So I encourage you to pass it, and thanks for your time. Excited to see new members coming on the board next month and look forward to meeting them. So with that, thank you, Carl Yee, for your service. I got to speak in front of you a few times, and you always did such a good job as being president, and your service is recognized from the union. And I do hope you have a good transit board retirement. With that, I'll end my comments. You guys have a good night.
Thank you, Bill. Next up is Rob Sako. Rob, go right ahead when you're ready.
Can you hear me, Camille and others?
Yes, you sound great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, President Vargas, members of the board, staff. First, it's awesome to be on this new technology with the live streaming for the public. This is really great. Thank you for doing that. Best has already posted to our Facebook page, both the work session you just had and this meeting that's going on now. So thank you. I'm sure that this will provide greater access and transparency for the public. I know that it's been technically difficult and perhaps a bit expensive, but surely well worth it. Second, I want to join others. Carl, thank you for your years of service. I remember maybe 8.5 years ago when you're thinking about joining the board, chatting with you at the University of Oregon, and a lot of things have happened since then. We've gotten a West UGMX built and opened, and it's been a good run. So thank you for all of your leadership and support, and wishing you well. Mainly, I'd like to speak about the strategic planning process. Best watched the work session you just had, and we're really pleased and excited. The TransFlow consultants are outstanding. We're really excited about focusing on outcomes and having the board set priorities, and then staff figure out how to achieve those. The why, the what, the how, the measurement is really a good framework. Excited the strategic planning committee will be part of this and informing this. Our representative, Marianne Nolte, of course, is vice chair of SPC and will be helping with this. But broadly, I want you to see BEST as a partner in this and helping to assist in serving the community well. So thank you for all that. We're very excited.
Thank you, Rob. And I am not showing anyone else indicating they would like to speak. So Caitlin, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Great. And thank you so much, Rob and Bill, for that. I really appreciate that. And we're going to move on to board member reports. There was quite a few meetings this month. I see the STIF committee, LCOG board of directors, MPC, which Carl and I attended, the contract committee, and Lane Act. And then looks like, I think that's it. So if any board members want to report on any of those committees that I just mentioned, please let me know. And then also if there's anyone from SPC, Camille can assist by bringing them over. So please, anyone have anything to say? Don, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll just say Lane Act is active. We have 2 more meetings this month even. OTC, or the Oregon Transportation Commission, is actively trying to redefine its relationship with the acts across the state. And it's an interesting process. I believe, well, at least from the direction of the Oregon Transportation Commission, they're taking this seriously and trying to engage the area commissions on transportation a little more robustly than they have in the past. So that's a helpful thing. It's been a lot of work and a lot of extra meetings.
Well, thanks for doing that extra work and going to those extra meetings, Don. We really appreciate that. And anyone else wish to say anything about the other committees of it? No? Okay. All right. Well, then, Camille, did anyone from SPC wish to speak?
No, I don't have anybody this time. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the consent calendar. We have quite a few items under here, so I hope you all had the chance to read through all of that, since we have approval of minutes, the delegated authority report, contract, the labor contract, the budget committee member appointments, and also the approval of the comprehensive and accessible transportation committee appointment. So lots of stuff. Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we had agreed, Carl and Emily and I had agreed at the contract committee just to talk briefly about the Gyro contract. It's a very large contract for our scheduling software. I don't know if this is the moment to do that.
I will ask Camille that. Camille, is this the appropriate time?
Typically, it would have been during the board member update, because it's one of the committees that reports back to the board. I don't see any problem. As long as you're not discussing the contract, giving a brief update is okay. If you want to actually discuss it as a board, we would need to then pull it from the consent calendar and approve it separately.
So Josh, would you say this is an update or piece for discussion?
Oh, yeah, I think this is just to reinforce the habit that we've been trying to develop as a contract committee, not to just have big dollar items slip by in the consent calendar without some acknowledgement. And we just wanted to emphasize that we spent a long time discussing this, and the staff presentation was excellent and really answered all of our questions and more about it. So if people have questions, they're welcome to direct them to us. But as the contract committee, we were unanimous in recommending approval of the contract. So I just wanted to emphasize that and not be entirely on autopilot for that one.
That's perfect. Thanks for bringing that up, Josh. Carl?
Just to tackle what Josh said, one of the, I was actually debating, like, should I say something or not? But the staff's going to do additional presentation to the board about that contract. So just there will be more to come.
Great. That's really helpful. Yeah, please always feel free to add on anything that you think would help, not just the board, but members of the public watching this as well. So thanks to both of you. Okay, anything else before I ask for a motion?
Caitlin, I just had a question on the delegated authority report. I just always think it's important that we, just sort of make sure we're doing our due diligence. So I just wanted to check in on the line item on if it's helpful to have a page number. On page 27 of 164 on the board packet, we just have additional expenses for our janitorial services. And I just wanted to just check in, see what that was in regards to. I'm sure I have a general sense of why we're doing that, but just want to, always check in, make sure we're getting enough information for ourselves and the community.
AJ, is that something you'd like to respond to?
Yes, I believe Emily said page number 124. And if so, what I can do is I can research that, check with staff and review the invoice and submit information to you and the all board members by the end of the week.
Perfect. And that was page 27, just to make that project a little easier. And it's not urgent, just again, doing some due diligence.
Okay, page 27.
Great. Well, Carl, go ahead.
Well, I would like to move adoption of LTD resolution number 2021-02-17-006. It is hereby resolved that the consent calendar for February 17, 2021 is approved as presented.
Second.
Thank you so much, Stephen. So Carl made the motion and Stephen provided the second. I'm going to do a roll call vote. I'm going to start with Josh Scove.
Aye.
Thank you, Josh. Emily Secord.
Aye. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks, Emily. And Don Norden.
Aye.
Thanks, Don. Carl, yay.
Aye.
Thanks, Carl. And then Stephen.
Aye.
Thanks, Stephen. And then I as well vote aye. Great. Thank you so much for that. All right. We are moving right along. So next up is me. Great. So I get to keep talking. My favorite. So next up, we're going to do the board committee assignments. Those were actually included as a handout, not in the regular packet. So I hope you all had the chance to review the committee assignments. And so there were a few shifts for those of you who are remaining board members. So please make sure you review those carefully. And then in terms of our new board members, Michelle and Susan, you'll see them on here. They will be starting next month. So we're very excited for that. Does anyone have any discussion related to the committee assignments?
No, it looks great.
Okay. That looks good. Well, thank you guys so much for being easy with that. I really appreciate that. And it's,
Don,
oh, I'm sorry, Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the Special Transportation Fund Committee. And then we just had the report that these committees are being merged with the STIF committee. And kind of wondering, why do we need to even have appointments here if that committee is going to dissolve, in essence?
That's a great question. I'm going to let AJ answer that one because she knows the intricacies of that.
Caitlin, I think that was, I think I put that in my notes, but I think we kind of missed that. So what I will say is that committee will likely be dissolved. I can provide a further update at a future date. I will be part of the Rules Advisory Committee for the state in joining that. And maybe at that time, it would be an appropriate time to update that information. But I would say we don't have enough information yet. We believe it's being dissolved, but I believe there may be opportunities to keep them separate if some agencies could. So it's a good placeholder for now, I guess the point is.
Thanks, AJ. I did want to make a note that you don't see the ad hoc general manager evaluation committee on here. That's something that I will address next month in March. So I just wanted to point that out. And any other questions? Okay, recommend if you want to get a reoccurring appointment on your calendar, that would be something to connect with Camille about. And any additional questions, she's extremely knowledgeable about all of this, and she can help point you in the right direction if you have any additional questions following scheduling or just anything else. She'll be able to help out with that. So great. Well, thank you everyone for making that so easy. So So we are a little bit ahead of schedule, which is my favorite thing, as you all know. So let's move on to our next agenda item, which is presented by John Allen, the STF grant allocation. So I see John. Awesome. Welcome, John. I'm going to turn everything over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, you should see me sharing my screen with presentation materials. Let me know if you have any trouble hearing or seeing any of this. So hello to everyone and members of the board. I'm John Allen, LTD's Accessible Services Program Manager. Today is part 2 of our 2-part series on the use of grant funds for services that support older adults and people with disabilities. So last month you heard me describe our individual programs, and this month I'm going to be very briskly taking us through the finalized funding recommendations of the board's STF committee in preparation for LTD submitting grant applications prior to a March 1st deadline. So as a reminder, board member Norton served as an ex officio member of the STF committee, with board member Sikora serving as an alternate. So this committee did a deep dive reviewing applications and presentations from each program when creating their recommendations. So they used the lane coordinated transportation plan to prioritize different funding requests following these basic principles. So first, and as the highest priority, it was to continue funding existing services. And then second, whenever possible, when funding allows, to expand existing services. And third, finally, when funding allows, to consider adding new services. So as grant funding was generally flat for the upcoming biennium, it's not surprising that the STF committee voted by unanimous consensus to recommend funding existing services at existing service levels. However, even though the recommendation is to provide the exact same levels of services in the prior biennium, I want to note that the cost of providing these services has been increasing. So all programs are fully funded using grant funds and partnership agreements, with the exception of RideSource, which as mandated service has traditionally been subsidized using general funds. After the STF committee finalized the recommendations, a public hearing and protest period was started, and we received no protests or additional feedback regarding the committee's recommendations. So as part of your packet, I've included a colorful spreadsheet that attempts to summarize the work of the committee. So I'll be the first to admit it's a lot of information to take in. So I'm going to briefly mention each program and its funding, so please don't despair if the spreadsheet itself seems a bit overwhelming. So for any of you that have a particular interest in this material, we do get into even more detail as part of our committee packets, which remain part of the public record, and all of our meetings have been recorded, same as this has. So we've only got a few minutes to go through these recommendations, so let's get right to it. So these should all look familiar from last month's presentation, and I'm going to be going through very quickly. So first, we have vehicle replacements, which we receive an allotment of 5310 FTA direct disbursement funds, which we would then match using special transportation funds. We did note through the committee desire on both the LTD and the committee's intention to prioritize a replacement vehicle for South Lane Wheels, providing services in the Cottage Grove area. We also need to provide preventive maintenance on our vehicles, and so we have an allotment based on being able to perform that work for the upcoming biennium using federal 5310 funds matched with state special transportation fund dollars. We also have our RideSource ADA service. This is our paratransit service, complementary to our fixed route. This uses a combination of 5310 funds, special transportation funds, estimated fare box revenues, as well as general funds to be able to support the service. We also have our rural escort program to provide gas mileage reimbursement for volunteers providing trips outside of our normal service area. This is using federal 5310 funds, some Older Americans Act funding we received from Senior and Disability Services, in-kind match through people working at Senior Disability Services in LCOG, as well as donations we receive from people grateful to receive the service. We also provide behavioral health transportation through Whitebird Clinic. This is funded using federal 5310 funds and state special transportation funds. Veterans and Crucial Connections, or GAP trips that aren't funded by any other program, funded using Federal 5310 State Special Transportation Fund dollars. Carl Buck Center, preschool transportation for parents and adults who identify with disabilities using Federal 5310 dollars matched with local match from the Pearl Buck Center itself. City of Cottage Grove, this is not the Mobility on Demand program. This is actually separate services within the City of Cottage program for a demand response system. This is primarily using special transportation funds to match and further subsidize 5311 funds that the City of Cottage Grove receives, as well as estimated fare box revenue. Alternative Work Concepts is our travel training and transit hosts funded using Federal 5310 matched with State Special Transportation Fund dollars. And then eligibility assessments to assist people to know what types of services and programs they are going to be able to participate in using a combination of Federal 5310, Medicaid funds that we're able to leverage, as well as in-kind match through LCOG Senior Disability Services. We also have recommended allocations of special transportation funds to support services in Florence. That's the Rhody Express, which is primarily funded through 5311 federal funds, estimated fare box revenues, and local contributions received from the City of Florence. And similarly in Oak Ridge, the Diamond Express, which we are estimating using 5311F federal funds, intercity transportation funds, matched with special transportation funds, estimated fare box revenues, and contributions received from the City of Oak Ridge. So all these services, we are estimating that the allocations required to sustain current service levels. And so just to recap that process, pending the final recommendations of the STF committee, now we come before the board to finalize recommendations. And so with all of that, I'm open to any questions that anyone might have, and a reminder, they'll be looking to the board for a motion finalizing our next steps.
Any questions?
No question, but thank you, John, for that good recap.
Josh, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a quick question. Thank you, Caitlin. And John, thank you as always for an incredibly clear and well-organized presentation. I'm just curious, and maybe it's a silly question, but I'm just, the funding seems so buttoned down and so taken care of from these various sources, or at least it seems clear where we would get the money. Is there any connection between these particular transportation needs that I think if they disappear, they are of incredible consequence for the people who use them. Is there any connection between these funding needs and the CARES Act, or are these things essentially completely separate and the federal programs that fund them are still intact and we don't have to worry about it? But I just want to sort of prepare us as we think about how we will spend the CARES Act dollars over time.
That's a great question, and thanks for asking that. So I will note that I'm coming before you today really separate from CARES Act funding. So I will say that while I think there'll be others within the organization that can better speak to the use of CARES Act funds specifically, what I am coming before the board is with the recommendation on the allocations that we know we will receive for STF and 5310 funds. So these are programs that existed prior to CARES Act being in place. And these are using funds that are independent of CARES Act funding. And so essentially what we've learned is that the estimation for the amount of STF funds and 5310 funds that we're expected to receive in the upcoming biennium is meant to remain relatively flat. And so the recommendations of the committee accordingly are to maintain current service levels using those existing funding sources. So I would say if it does seem like it's fairly routine, then I would agree and say that this is a very similar proposal to what was brought before the board 2 years ago based on relatively flat funding estimations.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful.
Does anyone else have comments or questions? Dawn? Carl?
Oh, I was gonna say I'm fully in support of this resolution, and I'd like to go ahead and make a motion. I move adoption of LTD resolution number 2021-02-17-011. It is hereby resolved that the LTD Board of Directors approves section 5310, section 5311, and Special Transportation Fund grant applications as presented.
Second.
I'll second. All right, we can.
Okay, thanks so much, Carl. I heard Josh second just a moment before Dawn, so thanks so much for that. Let's do a roll call vote. Let's start with Josh Scove.
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Emily Secord.
Aye.
Thanks so much, Emily. Don Norden.
Aye.
Okay, and then Carl Ye.
Aye.
Great, and Stephen.
Aye.
Okay, I also vote aye. So that passes unanimously. So thank you so much, everyone. And John, thank you so much for that presentation. We really appreciate your time here tonight.
Thank you so much. It's appreciated.
Well, great. All right, we are still rolling right along. Always appreciate a concise and effective conversation. So thank you to the board members and LTD staff. And I want to welcome Pat Walsh, and Pat is here to talk about the crisis communication plan. Great. So thank you so much for Pat. He's going to do a presentation, and once he's done, he'll ask if there's any questions. So Pat, floor is yours.
Thank you. Camille, do you mind bringing my presentation up? I was not able to make that work. But I'm going to talk tonight about our crisis communication plan. It's a draft plan. Just for your review, two things. I mean, one is it was an item that was called out in our communications review a few years ago, and also it's part of your evaluation of the district and the general manager, and the due date for this is of course in June. So it's important that we get this plan to you to take a look at now. I guess next slide, please. I start every presentation out. It's important to me is to ground the presentation certainly in an organization's mission, and I like our mission the way it is right now. I know it may change, but I just want to do so you understand where I'm working from, which is to serve this mission and then to live by to work it through the values of the organization, which are also part of this presentation. Next slide, please. And I think the key word here is that this plan, like all of the work we do, is set up to serve the members of our sub-districts and of the community. So again, this is the lens that I do all my work through for LTD. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to give you an overview of the crisis communications plan, the timeline for completion, and then the third part is the fact that with anything that is deemed emergency or crisis, the temptation is to do the plan and have it sit up on the bookshelf in the office, and then hopefully remember to pull it out when something happens. So we're going to exercise our plan, and I'll talk about how we're going to do that later. Next, please. So a little bit of information about me and why this task was assigned to me. Before I came to Eugene, I was the public information officer for the Alaska Division of Emergency Management. So I've worked on, in my career, I've worked on a lot of federally and state declared emergencies, everything from earthquakes and wildland fires to volcanic eruptions. In fact, I was working a volcanic eruption in the Aleutian chain when I found out I was moving to Eugene, and I couldn't understand what my wife was saying. I thought, Eugene, who? How's this all going to work? But anyway, that's how I ended up here. I've completed the FEMA Public Information Officer training. Then also I've taken some brush up classes on emergency and crisis communications planning through a university. And also in my private practice, I've done a lot of work in terms of various crises, everything from small corporate plane crashes to national product recalls and other sort of, and I hate to put it this way, run-of-the-mill sort of emergencies and crises that organizations deal with. Next slide, please. So what is a crisis communications plan? Well, a crisis communications plan is really just a framework. The key thing is for any organization in a crisis to provide accurate and timely information, particularly if it involves public safety and public health. It's really one element of an overall emergency management or crisis plan that an organization has. And LTD has one of these, and this plan fits nicely into that document and into that work. Next slide, please. So what is a crisis? And just I like to frame it this way. I'm not going to read it all to you because you guys can read it, but Dr. Timothy Combs studies crises and crisis communications, and I've always found this to be a really easy definition in order to define what we're talking about. But these are rare events. They impact public safety, public health, big reputational issues like a cyber breach, natural disasters, and also things for us involve transportation throughout the district. So that's what a crisis looks like to me and what we're going to work under here with this plan. Next slide, please. So I know how much everybody wants to hear from me, but I'm not going to go through all 13 steps of this plan. You guys have it in front of you, and you guys can you all can take a peek at it. But there's a couple of things that I do want to call out. One is that in any crisis, the activation for the plan falls to the general manager based on the information they receive from the public safety officer and other agencies we may be involved with in an issue. You know, there's various types of crises. I've talked about that a little bit. And anytime you're in a crisis situation, you have to have communication with your stakeholders and partners who are affected, so you can get information out. And in this plan, there's a list of all those folks. It's not meant to be exhaustive, but I think it provides sort of the basic folks, basic people we're going to need to have contact with. The other thing is, in an emergency or crisis, the management system for the organization changes to address that crisis. So you continue with all your regular operations, but the emergency management of an organization is managed to what's called the incident command system. And this was a system that was first implemented in the 1980s by the California Fire Service. And it is set up exactly the same way the United States military plans for and fights wars. So there's an incident commander staff that consists of a liaison officer who would work with all of you and government, other government partners, a safety officer, and the public information officer. And then there's 4 section chiefs. So logistics, planning, finance, and I'm missing one, operations. And then each one of those, there's people that flow under. It's a really, if you like management, it's a great way to work because everybody has their job. Everybody knows how to interact with one another and what the other group can do to solve this, to come up with a solution for this crisis. So it's a little bit different than the run of the mill, our day-to-day operations. Our crisis team here at LTD, the communications team, would consist of the public information officer, the marketing director, social media person, a marketing person, and a graphic designer. And from there, they would work, the public information officer works with the incident commander and the general manager to come up with what the messages are for the strategy, the messages and the strategy to disseminate information out to the public. And then the other point I want to make is there's always one designated spokesperson, and that's usually the public information officer with help from the incident commander, the general manager, or an expert on what you're talking about in terms of the information you're going to release. At the end of this plan, you always evaluate it. But those are sort of the elements, without getting into all the details that are in the written plan. But those are sort of the highlights of things I wanted you as a team to take a look at. Next slide, please. So the timeline for this. So we have the first draft is done. Tomorrow, I'm going to send this plan to the emergency managers at the county and the city of Eugene and the city of Springfield. They know it's coming. I want them to review it and take a look at it. Frank, our safety officer has seen it. I also want the public information officers at those 3 government entities to take a look at this plan too, to make sure that we are in alignment, that in case there's something that happens, that we need to draw on them or they need to draw on us through mutual aid agreements, that we can actually, that we're actually in sync with one another. Then what I want to do, and this gets to the next point, is it ideally in April, after I talk with these emergency managers at the other government agencies, I want to work with them and have them help me put together a tabletop exercise to bring our communications team together to work through an exercise so that we will have actually, worked as a team in a crisis situation at least once, even if it's an exercise. And then have the final communications, crisis communications plan done and completed by May. This crisis communications team, I want them to meet twice a year. I just want to make sure we're on top of it, and that the plan is not so thick that we can't use it, but has all the right information on us to provide that framework for us to move forward in the event that there is a full-blown emergency or a crisis that we're a part of. Next slide, please. As I said, we'll review and update the plan because we want to make sure we've got the highest quality control part of it. We also are going to want to implement update all of our contact information for our partners and stakeholders. Next slide. Yep. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Pat, I just want to commend you for this hard work. This is not an easy thing to compile. And, we've all been desiring this for a while, and it's so great to finally see it come to fruition. And I definitely encourage board members to thoroughly read, not just to support LTD in case of a crisis, but also what is your role as a board member? And I'm sure Pat can speak on this, but from what I got from it, a lot of times that just means nothing. Like, I don't speak, I'm not a media representative. I'm not one of the folks that has anything to do with the messaging, but how can I support the agency in my role that's been selected? And so I just really encourage you all to really make sure you read and understand that the whole plan. And then I saw Carl's hand up, so let's start with you, Carl, and then we'll go to Don.
Thanks, Caitlin. And I just want to echo what Caitlin said. Pat, I really appreciate that you put it all in writing and that it's in development. I think it's something that the board has been wanting to see, and it is good to have it. I did have a couple questions. One was, who exactly declares something to be a crisis? Because, is there a designated person to do that? Would that be the general manager?
It'd be the general manager with input from others. If it becomes that person's decision to declare an emergency, that happens at the city and the county too,
Okay.
But they have to take in information from a variety of sources and then determine whether what's going on is beyond the normal scope of everyday business, in terms of being able to handle it.
And I think the other thing I would add, I guess this next one's more of a comment,
Sure.
More guidance to the board as to what our role would be in all of this too. And I think we've done pretty well most of the time. And then a really quick comment, I think even though we didn't have anything more formal in the past, I really do feel like we have had, the board has been informed when there have been things I would consider to be a crisis. That we were notified pretty much immediately, so that we were aware of it. And so, but again, it's really good to have this all laid out like this.
You bet. Thanks.
Thanks, Carl. Let's go to Don and then Josh.
I just kind of following up on a little what Carl was saying, but just wanted to get a clearer idea of what is the team. I mean, you're a member, or LTD is one member of the crisis team. And you mentioned the city of Eugene, city of Springfield, and I assume at some point it goes up to FEMA or whatever in the federal level. But could you give me a sense of what the the command system is? Who's ultimately in charge of a major crisis, say there was a huge earthquake here, then all of these different agencies would get involved. Who would be on the top of that, or what you would be working with as a practice team?
Well, you know, if there were a major earthquake here, that would be, you know, what happens is there's phases. So, and if Frank's on here, he can probably answer this better than I can. But like, for instance, with the fires, let's use that one as an example. There has to be a local declaration of emergency that the local jurisdiction vote, you know, agrees to, and then the state can then needs to declare a disaster or an emergency, and then the federal government. There's steps that have to happen, and with each one of those steps opens up resources, both from a staffing and a money standpoint, each step of the way. It also then, it doesn't take away people's responsibility or authority, but what happens is that the organization folds into a unified command. And that's a big, becomes a pretty big deal. Like, for instance, with the fires, because we have mutual aid agreements with all of the, you know, with the government entities, so the state or the city, we were ready to provide the services as needed, as called upon. So if it's like when they needed buses, we sent some buses out, you know, to be able to move people between places. AJ made me available to the public information office, so that in what they call a joint information center, so I could go in and provide and do some work, and also provide some relief to the staff that had been there a while. So that's typically how that works. In terms of our individual plan and who's the commander, you know, I'm going to defer that bigger conversation to AJ and to Frank, because that's a little bit out of my scope. My part of this is just one sliver of it.
Okay.
And I do want to
just a comment on the presentation is, when you open the page up, you start out with the PIO and the PAO. Now I can figure out PIO. I didn't figure out PAO, and I don't know what VOX means. And you know, we're not short of.
Well, Vox is the name of my company. So, you know, I'm sorry you didn't know the name of that. It's voice. It's the word. It's Vox is voice in Latin. So I'm sorry you didn't know that.
Well, I just didn't understand the page. Well, what's the reference?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And Caitlin, if I may just answer.
Yeah.
Don, so the question about kind of the who's at the top of the chain, it depends on the incident.
Mm-hmm.
Times it could be if it's a matter restricted to LTD, I would be at the chain of the top of that in having responsibility. Of course, I report to the board of directors. If it's a matter of a crime, the top of the chain might be our local law enforcement. If it's involving some type of OSHA requirement, a work catastrophe, it could be OSHA at the top of the chain. If it's a matter of transit security, as the board was briefed on a matter about a month or so ago, Frank actually contacted the Department of Homeland Security. So it could be as low as myself, but it could go all the way to the federal level. So in each case, as part of this, so although we did not have a formal plan, several of us have worked under other organizations' plan. So we have been functioning under this structure and already have this system in place. But what Pat has done is he's really put it together comprehensively to really put this as part of LTD standard operating procedures and a part of our transparency on how we do business. So like Carl said, although we've kind of followed this model, we have really never had such a comprehensive plan that helps the entire organization manage conflict and communication. So thank you, Pat, for that work.
Before we go back to Josh, I'm just going to check in if Stephen or Emily had anything they wanted to say.
I'm good. Appreciate Pat's presentation. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Emily, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yep, I would just agree. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Emily.
Really glad we're doing this work. Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. So Josh, is your hand up with another question?
Yeah, actually, it's my first question on this one. Yes, it is up. So this is a couple of different things. I want to ask something just involving examples that we've had in the past. And then I have another question about social media, the social media section of it, Pat. But before I do, let me just say this is incredibly reassuring to sort of see all of this laid out so clearly. And I really appreciate your work on this and everyone's work on it. Obviously, a lot went into this. I'm wondering if, I mean, maybe you could say just a little more about what the board's role in like understanding these processes that are in place can be. And I guess I'll just say my sense is that, you know, we get, and I'm guessing other board members also read essentially every press release that we get from LTD. There aren't so many of them. So we kind of sit there as maybe the members of the community who are just barely outside the organization in some sense, watching everything, you know, all of the messaging by the organization. But when I think about the way we have gone through a number of these crises in the past, like the really bad snowstorm that I think was at the beginning of 2020, but now with pandemic time, I can barely remember. Like I felt like our messaging was really great and really clear. Obviously the pandemic, there's maybe this extra extreme circumstance. I don't know how to judge it, except to say that I think we've been clear and look really consistent with our communication. But maybe before I ask the social media question, can you just say a little bit about how you think we as board members should absorb this? Because I feel like we have good examples from the past, but I don't know what else quite to take away from it.
No, I think a couple things. You ask a good question, and you know, I think Carl mentioned this too, is sort of what's your role in all this? You know, I think there's two things. I think, well, there's more than two things, but you know, one is we need you to have board members to have the ear of your sub-districts in the event there's something going on, that and be able to funnel that information into all of us so that we know where hotspots are and where people aren't being communicated with adequately. I think that's really key. You know, also I know that as you know, this is why I think we probably ought to drill a plan, maybe a bigger plan for everybody, include everybody in it, right? So you know, you understand your role, but you know, then you guys come into play with not only your sub-districts, but then also to communicate with your partner agencies, so the link, you know, the county commissioners and other people, because that's where your leverage is going to come in for us, is to be able to not only make the case that this is serious, but also find points of collaboration that maybe the incident command team and the communications team and others are not going to be able to see, because they're very much at that ground zero level. You see what I'm saying? And then to be able to participate in that way. And then there's this liaison officer that typically helps you manage all that, to be the gathering point for that information and to help set those sorts of opportunities up for you to interact with your peers on things. You asked me something else that I wanted to get to, Josh, and I'm sorry I got lost.
I didn't get to it yet. It was going to be or maybe I was going to say, I don't know if this is what you're thinking of. Maybe you could say something about how the episodes we've been through in the past would be different, like what we would have done differently, because I feel like LTD did a pretty good job communicating about those.
I think we've done a good job. I think when you get into things like, you know, here, I mean, you know, when you think about it, it's snowstorms or ice storms. I mean, really what you're trying to get to are the facts, period. You know, will my bus pick me up? You know, if not, where will it pick me up at? And you have to stay, I guess we've done a pretty good job. We have to stay pretty factual though, you know, and be able to be there. You know, I always look for speed of information, to get information out quickly. So for me, I'm evaluating not only what we're saying, but how quickly we're able to gather it, get it approved and get it out. Because, you know, the less guessing people have to do, the better. But I think overall we do a pretty good job with things like that. The staff is motivated, I can tell you that.
Yeah, may I add to that as well? Yeah. So Josh, one of the major roles the board plays in this is during the debrief, is crisis communication You want that for things that are unpredictable. You want to have a good structure in place. You want to tabletop it, and you want to be ready when you need it. But what you do is, if every time you have the same type of crisis, it's no longer a crisis. What you want to do is you want to move that into your communication. So some of the work that we're doing is, whether it's snow and ice or other types of things, whether it's unexpected closure of streets due to protests that's unexpected, is how do we have a good communication system already in place to prevent crisis communication, so that you only deploy those crisis communication when it's truly a crisis. So it's moving them out of crisis communication and moving them into your regular communication. So there is a role for us to, as we see patterns, to start moving those into our communication and really managing the crisis communication as in the way that Pat mentioned. So, you know, those are great discussions in which what areas that we faced in recent time could we move into our regular communication and out of our crisis communication. So
that's very helpful, AJ, and your answer as well, Pat. Thank you. And actually, maybe that's a good segue to my final question. And it's really, maybe this is a constructive criticism, but just looking at the social media section on page 17, section XVI, the only time I've ever seen any sort of web or social media analytics from LTD was in the context of the previous sort of communications, not crisis communications, but communications plan that we had a consultant do. It strikes me that this is maybe the section you least want to be figuring out in the moment, like in real time. And so the absence of detail there made me a little concerned about the, you know, how are we reaching people, right? Just posting stuff on the website is fine, but you know, like what are we doing to actually get the word out, you know, to writers, for example. So anyway, I would just say that, yeah. Anyway,
take that as a criticism. It's a really good point. And I think that I will go back and see how I can put some more juice into that. I think thanks for pointing that out.
Sure.
That's fair.
Great. Thank you. Otherwise, this is great. Thank you so much for the work.
You bet.
We have time for one more question before we need to move on to our next presentation. Does anyone else have anything? Great. So Pat, thank you again. That was a great presentation. Great questions, board members. Everyone brought up some really good points. And AJ, thank you for you weighing in as well. So Pat, we look forward to all the great things you're bringing LTD, and thanks again for your expertise. And we're so glad you're on the team.
Thank you, Caitlin. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So next up, we have Teresa Brand for communication analysis recommendations. Teresa, good to see your face. We haven't seen you in a while, so so happy to reconnect, even if we're on the video. So floor is yours, and we can't wait to hear what you have for us.
That sounds great. Camille, can you allow me to share screen?
You can go right ahead.
Okay. I forgot the logistics here. Okay. Okay. Yes, I'm Teresa Brand. I'm the Transportation Outreach and Marketing Manager, and I'm here to share some information and an update on our progress on the recommendations that we received from the 2019 CELTUS Communications Analysis Report, which was adopted by the board in September of 2019. That analysis focused on the following areas. It reviewed our existing district communication functions, our messages, and our strategies. It identified areas of strength and also areas that we needed improvement in the way the district's communication functions work. We also, as part of that, developed our solicitation for communications firms to execute the changes proposed, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Review success of the implemented changes and offer professional development services on an as-needed basis. As Pat talked about, everything begins with our mission and our values that support our mission. So the goals for the presentation this evening are to review the analysis recommendations, to summarize the progress what we've made in year one on those recommendations, to look at what's our priorities for year two, which is this year, and then also beyond year two, kind of what's in store for us as we move forward. As we talked about, the board of directors approved the formation of an ad hoc communications committee to review the draft CELTUS communications analysis report and to provide some input prior to the issuance of the final report. The committee met twice and provided their input. That input was used to help guide our efforts over the last year in response to the analysis. The report recommended a 2-year outline of tasks, which would help us maximize the marketing and communication efforts of the district. We are here at the end of year one, entering into year two, to share progress on those recommendations and share what lies ahead for this year and beyond. Some of the overarching areas that CELTUS recommended in their analysis was for us to ensure positive, clear, and consistent customer information in their experience, to formalize our brand plan and our brand standards, own our own messages, optimize our digital presence, enhance our consistency and our efficiency in the marketing and communications functions here at the district. Some of our key accomplishments that occurred over the last year, even in light of all the efforts we had to make with our COVID communications for the district, included some website improvements. We had some ADA improvements that we made, and also we made our website mobile responsive, which means that when you look at your mobile device, it looks the same as our regular website, and before they were different. And that it makes it a lot more easier for people to look at, and also we would not have to post things in 2 different places. We, in general, enhanced our overall digital media presence. And as most of you are aware, we very recently hired a digital marketing specialist who has a lot of background in this. And also already we're seeing some great strides with our digital presence since we've hired this person. We implemented a bench contract that came out of that solicitation I talked about in that first slide. And we've used it for a number of key communication efforts. One of those was with the Kaywood Group that provided communication support for our Transit Tomorrow project before that was halted. We also are using the Revolution Group for some of our documents related to our CIP and our budget. And currently we're working with the Terrell Group. All these groups are part of that bench contract for our current COVID campaign. We also enhanced our collaboration between the marketing and communications work group, all the team members. Just making sure I hit all my key points here, just a minute. Again, we coordinated our key messages, our marketing messages, our media messages, both with frequency and our consistency. We've been very tuned into our branding efforts to make sure that things look like it all goes into the brand family. And we've responded to new developments, including COVID, with flexibility and responsiveness as a team and hopefully as an agency. Here are some of the examples of how we put this into practice, both in some of our social media posts, some of the branding of our materials and rider information. We've got consistency in brand colors and in design, and they look like they go in the same family in all of our products, and that was our goal, and also recommendations from CELTUS. Some of the other things we've done, additional examples in our printed materials, on signage, and our digital communications through social media, again, having more standardized templates, things again that all look like they came from LTD instead of different colors and different designs, etc. And it's been very deliberate and done in a much more tight function than we have in the past. So in looking at year two, which the things that we're working on this year, we're continuing to strengthen our organizational management in our work group. We will continue to enhance our digital marketing efforts. We're also using data and data analysis, especially with social, to really look at how we plan for future marketing and communications information. So that's something we're going to continue to focus on. We're adding continued website features, and we'll do this up until the time where we actually replace the website, which will happen hopefully next year. It's in the budget for next year. We're working on a marketing and communications plan, and obviously Pat just talked about the crisis communication plan. Continued work on the branding efforts. Obviously, we had some areas to make up with that, and we're continuing to work on that. And if you have been looking at some of our materials and our signage, I think you already can see those improvements in place. We will support key agency priorities, develop some new customer information tools, and also we're working on our sponsorship and donation strategy for our current program. It needs some revamping, and so we're going to look at strategically what we want to do with that program, looking at other models from other transit districts, and enhance internal communication efforts and tools. One of these is going to be a SharePoint website that will be, we have a SharePoint website, but it'll be a SharePoint landing page that'll be developed in particular for internal communications. It'll be the first page that employees pull up when they go to the web. There'll be a landing page that'll talk about department updates, calendars, kind of highlighting what's happening internally with, like we used to do with the Inside Lane printed document. We're going to do that in a SharePoint page, so we're pretty excited about that. And in looking forward, we are going to continue to work on our exterior signage. The CELTUS report pointed out how many different types of signs that we have and how they really don't match. And so really kind of working on improving consistency with that, especially as we are replacing and updating signs. Down the road here in the next couple of years, we want to get funding and upgrade our bus stop signage. Some of them are both worn out, and also we just want to kind of rebrand that with the updated brand standards. We want to continue to evolve on our digital communication channels and trends. We've learned a lot through COVID about digital communications, I'm sure as has everyone. But that can be really valuable because we've got, in a way, we've gotten to test a lot of things out that we probably wouldn't have done without COVID. But it's taught us a lot about kind of what people are responding to, what we can measure, different channels that we really weren't using fully before. So we're going to continue to follow that. We're going to do a lot more video, short videos, maybe some animated GIFs, just different things to bring excitement to our social media and digital presence. And again, we're going to look at developing a new website and roll that out here in the next year and a half, and continue to use electronic tools. One of them we hope will be an electronic sign management software that will help us manage our electronic signs, the ones along MX, because right now you have to change those individually, and we hope to be able to send out flash messages all at one time. And right now we have to do that 32 times for our electronic signs individually, and it's very clunky. So we want to do those kind of things that will really help us send out messaging in an efficient manner using some of the software tools that are out there. We do want to continue to train our staff to make sure that they are staying abreast of new trends and new technology, and so we're investing in that. And we'll be rolling out a marketing plan based on the priorities in the strategic business plan. So you'll be looking for that here in the next short period of time. And there's just a lot going on. We're really, really excited to be working on all this stuff. And it's a really exciting time to be at the district. And we're really poised to help the district to be as successful as possible with positive internal and external communications. So thank you for your time, and I'll answer any questions or hear any feedback.
Any questions? I see. Oh, all right. Let's go with Don, and then Stephen, and then Carl. So Don, you're up first.
Well, Teresa, I'm just excited to see this coming out. Some of these things I didn't even realize were happening, and it looks like a great improvement, and I'm looking forward to this. Thank you for this work.
Thanks, Don. We appreciate it. We're really excited about this work and feel like it's really putting us on a great path. Thank you.
Stephen, go ahead.
Thank you, Caitlin. Teresa, I just want to echo what Don said. Very helpful presentation. Thank you. Really like making everything uniform. It takes a lot of time, common sense, but executed well. And I've seen some of it, and I actually had someone comment to me saying they're noticing it too. So just thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for that feedback. That's helpful.
All right. Carl and then Emily.
Teresa, thanks so much for the presentation. I think, you know, we've been around long enough where we know that you had your work cut out for you for sure. And so there was a lot to do. Well, I did have one question about the actual vehicle signage, like, because you mentioned the signage like bus stop signs and other signs. Yeah. What are the plans with that?
So I can answer this in a couple different ways. So our admin vehicles, they all have a uniform look. Some of them are the ones that are like facilities and that are in security, public safety. They have an emblem with the name of their division, but the regular admin vehicles don't. But in regards to fleet and also ride source vehicles and that kind of thing, a couple different things. We've taken off logos of the older buses to make sure that there's uniformity in the way things are placed on there until those buses cycle out. And all the new ones have our new branding on there. So we're kind of in the in-between phase. All the new ride source vehicles, the Cottage Grove connector, those are all branded with the LTD colors. So they all look like they're in the same family. But we're working on the fleet, all these new electric buses that are coming, they'll be all branded with the new branding. So it's going to be pretty exciting and it's going to be very attractive.
That's perfect. And the reason I asked is because I think it's important to mention that in, whenever you're presenting, just because we've always gotten that feedback where people say they think RideSource, MX, and the bus are three different entities. And so I appreciate the work you are doing to try to bring that all together.
Yeah, it's been a big lift, but we're working on it.
Thanks so much for that question, Carl. Emily, I saw your hand go up briefly. Did you have something?
Yes, I was just going to say thank you, Teresa, for the update. It was really nice to see how this consulting and the ad hoc committee work sort of came full circle to this update. So appreciate that. It also sounds like there's some new efficiencies that maybe are getting built into our systems from a staff standpoint, but also like a templating. And so I'm wondering if we're saving some money on printing and maybe staff time. Could you maybe speak to how that consulting has saved money for the district over time potentially?
So there's a number of things that are related to that. We've also developed some SOPs much more comprehensively than we have in the past. So things are done the same way for each particular element, which I think has really helped with efficiency and not wasting staff time, that kind of thing. In regards to printing, we save a ton of money and effort by having someone as talented as a Sarah on our team that can really use our expensive plotter and do all kinds of things in-house that we may have sent out before, but because you've got that talented team in-house and you really maximizing all the things that our printers and other things can do, it saves us a lot of money and also can be done in a timely manner. And we don't have to farm it out. So I don't know if that answers your questions, but I've seen ways that we've just saved thousands of dollars by doing things in-house and being smarter with our work.
That's awesome and really exciting. Thank you for that, Teresa. I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks, Emily. And then we only have time for one more question, and that will be Josh Scove, because we need to move on to our last presentation. So Josh, you got a few minutes.
Awesome. I'll try to be quick. And let me start actually with Carl's final point that I think was a really incredibly important one. I don't know if everyone remembers, but we had Bell and Funk do a focus group and a condensed video with a bunch of the insights from essentially reactions from riders and other people in the community. And I think maybe one of the most important takeaways and things that we can change was exactly what Carl said, and that is that a lack of consistency across people's experience with different LTD services leads people to not realize all these different things are LTD, as Carl said. I mean, the services Carl listed, but others as well. And I think it's important as we move toward having a more integrated transportation system, including a more multimodal integrated transportation system, having people's consciousness realize the whole menu of things that are available to them through LTD will be incredibly important to getting adoption of and participation in those services. So I think a lot of this work I don't know, I'll admit to having been a curmudgeon in the past and be like, my gosh, who cares what color it is? But actually the consistency of experience is a really big deal for achieving sort of, adoption of different modes. The only other thing I just wanted to just emphasize, and a couple of people have said this as well, there was just so much work to do. And so thank you so much for making all of this progress, especially while there's, the minor distraction of a once in a century pandemic going on at the same time. So this is really amazing that you pushed this forward. Thank you so much for the work, Teresa.
I appreciate that. And I have to hand it to the staff. Obviously, we laid off a number of people on my team this year. And, up until recently, there was only 4 of us. And so we really had our heads down, just cranking it out because we really needed to be focused on the district priorities. It was pretty tough, but, it's a really talented group, very dedicated. And now we're lucky enough to have this digital person. And so, it's been a time of extreme amount of workload, but also really rewarding because it really is, we've been able to produce all these things. Who knew in COVID we could actually do all this additional stuff too? It's been pretty great. So hats off to my team.
Thanks for that, Teresa. And I would just say my only comment is, I love this stuff, and this is something I'm well versed in, and I've spent years working in communications and branding and messaging, and so this is really important work, and I really want to compliment the team. I definitely would recommend an update maybe biannual, so we can continue to see the progress through the recommendations that were made. And Teresa, maybe next time we could just get a refresher on those recommendations that you're focusing on, and then kind of the update that complements that recommendation. And, kind of almost like a Gantt chart where we can see who's working on it and what the timeline is. We can get a really concrete idea on that. But great job, huge round of applause. And I would just say to the board, it's cool that we're having this conversation because we had this consultant come in and they gave this great report and recommendations, and then the staff was able to carry this out, and we're in this really good place. But we're about to do that with strategic planning. So it's really exciting to think like, hey, look at how well this turned out. How cool that we get to do it again in kind of a different sphere. And so kudos to AJ and the team as well to finding these really fantastic consultants and agencies that we're working with that are able to nail down what LTD needs so that it becomes applicable, so the team can move forward and make those real-time changes. So full circle. But thanks, Teresa, for your time. We just really appreciate you being here. And like I said, if that's something you're open to, we'd love to, get those updates maybe biannually so we can keep celebrating these successes with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love.
Awesome. And then welcome to your new team member as well. Please tell her that we wholeheartedly welcome her to the team. We're super excited to have her here. Right. So next, we're going to move over to Cosette, who is going to present on the LTD Writer Campaign. Cosette's going to be our last presentation of the evening. So we'll go through the presentation and then she'll take questions. Thanks for being here, Cosette. Nice to see you.
Thank you. It's great to see you all. Can you all hear me okay? All right, thanks. Get my presentation up here. So good evening. I'm Cosette Reese. I'm the Director of Customer and Specialized Services, and I'm pleased to share with you, for your information, our Writer Campaign. This campaign goes back almost a year to March 2020, when we as an organization were heading down a very different path. COVID-19 burst into our community, and this presentation prepares us for the day that we're able to pivot back to encouraging COVID essential only trips toward welcoming the community back fully on board. So you've had, I'm the third presentation tonight from the marketing team, and you'll see the marketing team has a common mantra, which is it all starts with the mission. COVID-19 brought our world and our community to its knees. In the early years, residents were experiencing conflicting information in the media, dealing with unknowns around work, school, childcare, and assisted living situations, and experiencing supply issues as we stocked our pantries and medicine cabinets. As a provider of an essential public service, Lane Transit District focused resources right from the beginning to provide critical service to the community while protecting the health of our employees and our riders. Decisions have been made using the guidance of public health agencies, During this time, we've also referred back to our mission and values to guide our messaging and our activities. This presentation is focused on our LTD Rider campaign. I'll be sharing with you our goals, components, and the campaign, and how we're preparing for the next phase. At a high level, our communication goals were to ensure we communicated up-to-date and accurate information. Again, things were happening very quickly, and that we were utilizing channels that were accessible to our riders. Making sure that our communications instilled confidence by communicating the protocols LTD was following to keep our riders safe. To support our public health information, including practices to protect all of us, and prepare for rebuilding and re-welcoming folks back on board our buses when and as appropriate. Especially early on, our service and environment experienced rapid change in response to the pandemic. LTD's messaging was focused on what our riders needed to know at the time. In March 2020, there were 3 substantial service changes affecting our fixed route and paratransit services. These were followed by another in April and another in June. LTD paused our van pools and our mobility on demand service. We suspended fare collection and boarded only through our rear doors. As a resource, CSC was closed to the public and available only by phone and email. Our messaging has continued to stress healthy practices and procedures as public health guidance evolved. Our information was presented in a way that included the details of the current change, as well as cumulative updates to reduce confusion. We were putting out so much information. We also encouraged riders to stay up to date through our website. At the same time, we were moving to an all virtual public meeting format, and we put projects such as Transit Tomorrow and Moving Ahead on hold. As information was changing so quickly, we relied primarily on digital and media communication channels. As we entered the fall, we were losing the ability to spend time social distancing outdoors, we as a community. Our K-12 students and their parents were adjusting to online schooling. University students were moving in, hoping to experience all the great social opportunities of college life. The Holiday Farm wildfires brought stress anew, including rehousing thousands of people, pets, and belongings, and working to support them within our community while following all of the COVID protocols. We had the holidays coming up, and we were hoping that we'd all be together with family and friends. We were tired and fatigued. Our metrics were climbing. We felt stressed and oppressed by the messaging telling us what we can't do. We were letting our guard down. We as an organization needed to find new ways to inspire and encourage our riders to stay safe. In late October, LTD hired Turrell Group to create a media campaign to encourage riders in our community and to support the safety messaging. In November, LTD launched the Don't Invite COVID, Follow the 4 campaign. This includes the personification of COVID-19, presenting visually how easy it spreads. Through this campaign, we created a new and engaging, clever format to get attention and support healthy practice messaging. We also broadened our channels to gain more visibility in the virtual world. Here's some examples of the Don't Invite COVID campaign and how we kept it fresh by focusing on ways we might be tempted to let our guard down, including holiday gatherings, game day activities, and Valentine's Day. We created both English and Spanish assets of many of the pieces and used many channels. I'm sure you've seen them pop up on Facebook, TV, Instagram, or seen them on a bus or a billboard. It's pretty much everywhere. Today, we have about 30 partners and we're growing. These include agency partners, business organizations such as the Chambers of Commerce, and business and nonprofits. They're encouraged to not only share but to own the campaign through their own communications to make the reach broader and deeper. And here's just a few examples of how our partners have used the Don't Invite COVID campaign in their own communication channels. As we move forward over the coming months, we know we will emerge from COVID. We are, though, still in a COVID environment. There are, however, many unknowns. How will public health requirements be lifted? Will it be all at once or a little bit at a time? How will our communities' commutes change? We've been working, going to school, visiting the doctor from home, all or part of the time. How is that going to change how we look at using public transportation? Typically, generations are defined by significant occurrences, usually taking place during our formative years. These are events or significant technologies that have a lasting impact on our values, our perspectives, and our behaviors. Certainly, COVID is such an occurrence and will no doubt reshape the lens we view the world through. How will that reshaping impact public behavior and attitudes toward public transportation, our environment, and our values? And as a public transportation provider, how might that change our view and our priorities of how we define success in public transportation? One of the ways we're looking at how we move forward with our messaging is to understand how public transit will be relevant as we emerge and even long term. There have been many surveys aimed at understanding how COVID has changed people's habits and perceptions and how that might affect their behaviors going forward. LTD will launch a survey in March targeting riders 1 year after COVID began to determine how COVID-19 has changed their transit use and what perceptions they have toward using transit in the future. The results of this survey, along with the research in our community and throughout the country, can provide insight and opportunities for public transportation to better serve our communities, and our messaging can help support that. As our Rider campaign continues, we will stay the course, providing timely and accurate service information. Our messaging will continue to be creative and evolving. We'll continue to communicate strong leadership, instilling trust and confidence in LTD. We'll look to expand and strengthen the community partners we've developed to continue beyond COVID. We will use what we've learned. We now have an experienced in-house digital marketing specialist, as we've discussed, to build upon, use, and the engagement in the digital channels and appropriate messaging. As an organization, we will continue to tie our messaging back to our why. We'll continue to explore new methods to communicate with our riders and our community in ways that are convenient, relevant, and meaningful to them. So in summary, COVID-19 has impacted how we serve and how we communicate with our community. Over time and as we emerge, both our service and our communications may look differently as a result of this experience. And I'd be happy to take some questions at this time.
I don't see any hands. Oh, Carl, there you go. Kick us off, Carl.
Thanks, Caitlin, because thank you very much for that presentation, for all your work on this, because I know it's not easy. Not to put too much pressure on you, but I see this as LTD's greatest challenge this year. And I don't know if you agree with that. So the pressure is, I guess, mounting there too. But I really appreciate what you said about thinking forward and about gathering the information and adapting to the situation, because there's so many unknowns. And but I do agree with you, and I like the way you're going, which is that it's that communication, building the trust and confidence is going to be critical to making sure that we're working with our community to be able to provide transportation system or transportation to everyone. And one last thing is, like, I'm also glad you're looking at outside of our agency, because I know the rest of the nation is struggling with this as well. And I think we can learn a lot from each other. And I'm glad that LTD is part of APTA and working with other agencies. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for that feedback.
Any other questions or feedback for Cosette?
I'm curious if the communications and the previous conversation with Pat about the crisis communication, if that is something that we can maybe evaluate going forward, like what topics we're going to try and address as a part of a greater community conversation, which ones maybe, ought to be led by different organizations, and sort of how we collaborate between those two potential scenarios.
So, sorry, Caitlin, sorry, Emily, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how the LTD leads certain conversations versus how maybe different organizations or entities around the county are leading those instead of us, and sort of how that works with the crisis communication versus our just intentions going forward.
Sure, and thank you for that question. That's and thanks for repeating it. So one of the things that I mentioned is that LTD has taken a leadership role in this campaign, in part because, for instance, Lane County was really underwater with the COVID crisis, and then the Holiday Farm fire as well. So their resources, both in terms of people and capacity, was really not there. So LTD stepped up, took the leadership role. The counties, other agencies, other organizations signed on really early. Personally, I think that's one of the biggest accomplishments in the campaign is coming together as a community. So I feel like we are developing and creating ties and relationships and partnerships that can take us well beyond COVID, so that when we emerge from COVID and we're looking at service, we're looking at how we fit into our community, I think that we have a really great foundation to be working more broadly with our community. And again, the communication channels as well. We have an opportunity to reach out to new parts of our community through these partnerships. And again, they have to be partnerships. They have to be good at give and take. And I think as we talked earlier, I think that, as much as possible, this was an opportunity for LTD to step forward, step up and take on this campaign. And I think that there's going to be times when LTD plays a supportive role. And I think crisis communications is a great example. There's pieces of crisis communications that we can step up and take a leadership role, and other pieces were more a follower, we're a resource. The holiday farm fires were another one. LTD stepped up and took a leadership role in terms of helping to coordinate transportation again, to help out our partners, to help out our county, and to serve our community. I do really, though, think and value the partnerships that we're creating. And I think that we have an opportunity to strengthen and leverage those for the community value more in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks for that answer, Cosette. So we're running over time. So Josh, I see your hand up. Let's make it as concise as you can so we can move forward with the rest of our agenda items.
It's tough. Okay. Great job, Cosette. Thank you so much. Quick suggestion on the survey. If it isn't too late to do some of that coordination, if you're not already working with Rebecca Lewis in the Planning, Public Policy and Management Department at U of O, she led a team of researchers doing, so I'm one of the sort of peripheral members, but she's the one sort of in charge of it, did a big survey of people's travel habits and perceptions of safety under COVID conditions last year. So I think it's really, she'd be a good person to connect with. I'll send you that link, but I think important to sort of connect there. The one other thing I'll just say, just because we are being recorded, and I think it's important for us to keep this on the record, transit done right is just about the safest thing you can do outside of your house during the pandemic. And that is not where people's perceptions are. I mean, this is what shows up in the data. McKinsey, I sent this to the board, I think a month or two ago. McKinsey did a large global survey of like a couple of tens of thousands of transit riders in a handful of countries. People haven't figured this out yet. And it's understandable. It might not feel safe, but I think we really need to get the message out. When you take all the precautions that LTD has led with in many ways, yeah, it can be safe. So I think it's important for us to start getting that message out sooner rather than later, and then to lure people back onto transit in a safe way. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
Josh, yeah, I'm going to agree with Josh. I'm looking forward to the transition in the messaging. Good. All right. Well, thank you, Cosette, for your presentation and for your time here tonight. We really appreciate you being here. And let's move on to written reports. This is our last agenda item for the evening. I just wanted to point out that one of the items that we're looking at was actually provided as a handout, and that was the general manager update, where we had asked AJ to kind of give us updates on her 6-month general manager goals. My apologies for noise in the background. So I just want to make sure everyone caught that piece, that was outside of our packet. And then I will just ask if anyone has any questions for AJ or any questions regarding anything else under our written reports. Josh, is that hand up from before? Is that a new question?
Sorry, I left my hand in the air. That was inappropriate, but I'll take advantage of the moment just to say the reason there's no report from the Ad hoc Sustainability Committee is that we don't meet until next week.
Got it. Okay, and AJ, just, I want to do my due diligence and make sure, did you have anything that you wanted to say in this section?
I do. At the January meeting, I mentioned to the board of directors that I would provide that monthly update to the board. Today you saw some of the projects that the board had asked for the 6-month period. You will note there that I have brief explanations, and I'm trying to stagger the presentations to the boards throughout the 6-month period to try to make it digestible. But definitely at any time we can circle back with an item should we need to. So Josh mentioned exciting information is coming on the Sustainability Ad hoc Committee, and then we will bring a presentation to the board of directors about the work they'll be doing that, and that will be one of the very exciting things that LTD will be doing in 2021. So a lot of fun stuff happening. Really want to thank the board for their leadership and support on these projects. We have a lot of work to do, and I do agree that despite all the great things happening, the biggest challenge for us is communicating with our riders, attracting them back, and really building back the loyalty and support of our riders, because LTD has traditionally been amongst the most productive, effective transit agencies nationally, and we want to get back there sooner than later, and of course making sure that it's safe. So definitely we'll continue the conversation in the upcoming months.
Thank you so much, AJ. Emily.
Sorry about that. I was just wanted to, in light of our budget committee meeting in a couple of months, I just wanted to point out a couple of things just really briefly. I think it's on page 146 of our board packet, there's some pretty substantial negative numbers. And I just want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind. Just kind of calling out that section called the better or worse than what was budgeted. And there's some, negative $2.04 million on our operating revenues and a negative $14.5 million on the total general fund resources. So I just want to make sure that we're continuing to be just mindful of that. In light of everything that's going on, I know that budget isn't always the forefront of our mind, but I just want to make sure we're looking at economic sustainability as we go into those budget conversations in the coming months.
Thanks, Emily. And AJ, did you want to respond to that?
Yes. And we will be coming to the board at the budget committee, giving you all and the entire budget committee an update as where we are with the budget, but also presenting to you the plan for moving forward in fiscal year 2021. One of the exciting things we are doing is traditionally, we have been bringing to you over the last several years an annual budget. And what we're doing is we're aligning our strategic business plan, our long-range financial plan, and our community investment plan, so that when we look at 1 year, it really aligns with the big picture. I think today you heard from Mark Ash about we want to make sure that everything we're doing is leading us to the outcome. So as Emily is saying, is what we're doing today, where is that going to put us a year from today? So definitely the long-range financial plan will provide us that long-range looking ahead, and then we can measure as we go, how are we doing according to our outcome plan? So we've got a lot of work on the budget committee. It's a lot of heavy work, but it is really good work because it's really going to position the district in seeing how it's going to spend some of its federal dollars. I think Josh alluded that on a different topic today, and we will be having further discussions with the board about CARES Act, round 1, round 2, and we're hearing a potential round 3. So there is a lot of work that our Intergovernment Relations Manager, Tiffany Edwards, and myself are doing at the federal level right now in trying to support both as an agency, but also as a collective transit body funding that could be used to help sustain our financial position. So to be continued, Emily, there's a lot to talk about and a lot of big dollar numbers with a lot of zeros for us to go through. So thanks for watching out.
Yeah, and I just want to assure Emily too that we live in these numbers every day. So we see these negative numbers well before you do, and Christina takes every number seriously. So rest assured, we see them and we are paying close attention to them.
Well, thanks for that, AJ and Mark, and for answering Emily's question. You know, I think that it's been a while since we've actually been able to see Christina present, since her reports have been, you know, moved in this manner. And so, Christina, thanks for just keeping up your consistency and keeping these reports going and making sure you're providing the information to us in a very clear manner. We really, really appreciate that. So thank you to Christina. And I did want to point out, if you look at the very end of the written reports, you'll see our board annual working agenda. And so just a heads up for board members and members of the public, we're going to switch formats a little bit. We're going to start to have work sessions on the first Wednesday of every month from 5 to 6:30. And then we keep our regular board meeting time on the third Wednesday of the month from 5:30 to 7:30. So you will see that change reflected on the board annual working agenda. And I always encourage everyone to take a peek at that in case they're saying, oh, I think we should be hearing from this department again, or I've been wondering about this. And if you don't see it on there, please feel free to contact me. I would love input from board members as to what they feel like we need to be getting a presentation on, and then we can work with staff on behalf of that. But this shift is really meant to, like I talked about earlier, let's make sure we're not having too much Zoom fatigue, and we just want to be conscious of everyone's time. And thankfully, now that these are recorded, people can watch at other times, but hopefully by breaking them up, we can also have more people participate, so it's not such a huge chunk of time. And then, you know, we always have the flexibility of maybe keeping work sessions virtual in the future, but let's just see how it goes. And please, once again, give feedback as to what works or doesn't work for you. We're all in this together. And LTD staff, thank you for being here after a long day of work. You know, this is our last large, big chunk that we have to do together. Hopefully, as we break things up, it'll make your day a little easier. But we appreciate the time. So with that, we are done a few minutes early. I just once again want to say thank you to everyone here tonight, all the board members, the LTD staff, our legal counsel, and then Tim and Buck, who are helping us get this recorded. And then, of course, Camille, thank you again for organizing all of our meetings. We really appreciate all that you do. And Carl, you're going to be gone, but not forgotten, buddy. This is your last sign off. This is it. I got us out early, so that makes me feel good that it's your last meeting and we're like out 7 minutes early. But
well, we should be sending him a cake. We always send him a cake.
Well, good job, Caitlin. Also, good job trying to spend less time with me.
All right, Carl.
Well, Carl, it's too bad. You've been there in every meeting I've been to. I'll miss you.
We'll miss you, friend. Thank you for all that you've done, and thank you for being here tonight, you guys. Meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.